Hey guys, today I want to go over what it takes for a listing appointment, and basically leading up to that point, how to get the listing appointment, what to say at the listing appointment, and then basically the steps after that, and then basically what is entailed with all of the listing. So it's going to be a lot of info, a lot of compact stuff, but I'll be happy to share everything with you guys, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see specifically what this entails. Now, a lot of this stuff is directed towards rain with Virginia and Hampton Roads. North Carolina is obviously different, but I'm going to show you guys my process. So a lot of the times the process is the same. It just changes very little bit. So questions I was asked are how to set up a listing appointment, questions to ask your clients, and then we are going to common questions that you go over when you're listing their home. What do you look for when viewing their home? Advice for your clients that makes it more attractive. Things you need to know how to create the listing, things in rain with it, how to present the offers, and then how to choose the best offer, what to look for in the best offer. So I've got two things here that I made that I actually share with all of the agents is this sheet, the listing checklist. And then what I want to share with you is another listing checklist that I've created. So I've got two checklists here. We'll go over both of them because both of them are very similar. Um, but we'll start with the one on the left. Basically, this is Microsoft To Do. This is a website that I love using for a to do list, but you could use this for any to do list, whether it is notes, whether it is for anything random you want. So here, the very first thing I like doing is obtaining the address and seller's name from the listing agent. And actually, you know what? This is when I created it for the transaction coordinator. So it'll say listing agent here. But if you're doing it yourself, obtain the address and the seller's name. You'll want to verify that it's the correct person you're talking to, correct address. And then here, this process is more of for a TC, but we'll just go over it. So assist in doing the paperwork. Once you've got all the paperwork, then you're going to input that data into Brokerment, which is where we review all our files. And you do this before the house is actually listed because we want to make sure you have everything in there. Um, from that point, you're going to want to get the seller's phone, email, their occupation, birthday, their current address, all the good info. And like stuff like birthday, you don't have to get, but it's always nice because you can wish them happy birthday or you just friend them on Facebook and see it when that pops up. So over here, once you've got all the listing paperwork, you've got it scheduled. Say it's going to go live in 2 weeks. You know what you want to do is you're going to schedule the photos and possibly Zillow Video through Virtual Tidewater, and that's just who I use. You're really just going to schedule the photos to be done. You always want professional photos. That will sell the house every time. So you're going to coordinate with the photographer on what day and time that'll work. If you guys want a post in the ground, here in Hampton Roads, we use a company called Riggs Enterprises that will actually go out, put the post in, and then you can go ahead and hang the panel. They can take the panel back with them, but we have found it is always broken or bent. So I don't like doing that. And sometimes, you know, you could just go with the signs that you just stick right into the ground. So I always like that as well. We use showing time for our showings. A lot of people don't, a lot of people do. I love showing time because it takes out the hassle of having to coordinate with the buyer's agent, what time they can get there, and their buyer, and my seller. It literally just cuts out the middleman and goes directly from buyer's agent to seller, and then they book it from that point. So I love it. The system was well worth it. It's like $30 a month. It's only worth it if you actually list quite a few houses, but it is so life saving. Here, we're going to email the seller our preferred contractors list, which I've created as well. If you've got your own list, I love doing this because it gives them every contact on what entails for any job they need to do, especially when I tell them specific things they need to do at the house. Um, and obviously, I want them to complete all those items done at the house before we actually take the photos. Um, Complete the listing and home checklist, which is this exactly. Um, get the features of the list, which I'll show you later. Ask if the sellers have a termite company that they service regularly, and what company when the last time they got a moisture inspection, last time they got a clear letter. And this is important as well because if they don't have a current termite company, per our standards in Virginia, if they don't have a termite company, they are going to have to get a treatment done no matter what, which can be expensive. So ideally, if they had a company and they've been treated, then they're not forced to get one. So ultimately, they're going to have to get one. But if they already have a company, then it's already done and it's very easy. I want to get two spare keys from the seller. Really, what I like doing is putting one in the lockbox and the other keeping it at the office. That way, I always have a spare because there have been times where buyers agents will take the extra key, which is never fun. And sometimes I take that second spare and hide it somewhere around the house in case that happens or they can't get in the lockbox. Then I can always direct the buyer's agent saying, hey, go to this rock, lift it up, and you'll see the key. Um, so just something that you can do. Really, you only need one in the lockbox, but I like going the extra mile. Then you would put the sign in the front yard after the photos have been taken. Can't have the sign in there when the photos are getting taken, just after. You're going to put the lockbox on the listing as well. You're going to put and the contractor's lockbox can be a normal contractor's lockbox where it's a code, or you can use the rain lockbox. I love using the contractor's lockbox because I've got the code. No one else does. But not just that, in case, just say an appraiser wants to get there and they don't have access to a rain lockbox. That way, I don't have to drive there and waste my time to open the door for 2 seconds and then leave. It's just not worth it, my time. So, contractors' lockboxes are great, but rain is better. They're more secure. Um, make sure everything looks good in rain once we're going to go ahead and upload it. So you have about a week to where you can upload everything into rain before it goes live. That way you can double check everything, make sure everything is set. And then once you go live, then everything's already ready to go. You just press submit and it goes live that morning, which is really nice. Once you're in rain, you're going to upload all those photos into rain. And then when it's not a major seller's market, what I love doing is scheduling an open house for that weekend. So normally I love listing it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and then having open house Saturday and Sunday. Now these aren't as prevalent right now because houses are selling fast. But in the future, when it is more of a buyer's market, um, to where there's plenty of houses out there for sale, listings are going to take longer. That way, people see that it goes on the market Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they have time to plan to go see the open house the weekend. Now, if you put the house on the market on Friday and plan an open house on Saturday, you might not get as many people. So that's why I love doing it earlier in the week, like in the middle, and then having the two open houses. And open houses don't necessarily sell the house, but it helps you get more buyers for yourself. And 1% of the time, it will sell it. But just extra buyers who are physically looking, a physical interaction that you can have with these guys if they don't have a realtor is one of the best things ever. So you got to go the extra mile, but it's well worth it in our profession. Day zero on the market, which is really just day one. That is when I post everything on Instagram, Facebook, Boomtown, and I just showcase it to the world. Once we have the ratification, so we've accepted terms, that is where we're going to put everything into our brokerment. That is when we're going to update the MLS and show it's contingent. We're going to go ahead and get the buyer's point of contact for where they'll be closing, who the lender is, and all those details. We're going to send the ratified contract to our closing attorney and to the buyer's agent, really anyone who's in the transaction, like a transaction coordinator, a TC. Um, I love sending emails saying, congratulations on getting ratified. Here are the next steps. Ask for an EMD for the copy, and then when they plan on dropping off at the closing firm. And that's to the buyer side. Again, make sure all docs are input into brokerment. I love creating a post on Facebook and Instagram saying, hey, it's under contract. That way you're boosting to the world. I am doing my job and I'm good at it. Please use me. And really, that's what it's saying, but you can make it look a lot nicer, a lot more professional. But I love doing that because really I get to showcase myself and show the world, yes, I'm good at my job. This is why you should use me. At this point, if we have to, we could set up the termite inspection if applicable. Find out when the buy side is doing the inspection, And this is a key. Make sure all utilities are on. There's been quite a few home inspections I've been to on the buy side where the utilities aren't on, and the inspector literally has to stop where they are and leave because they can't finish the inspection if there's no water, no electric, which means they have to come back. And then now it's extra money and it's just a lot of wasted time. So always make sure your seller has the utilities on. At that point, they're going to fill out a form called the PICRA, to where they're asking for items to be fixed from the home inspection. At that point, we're going to negotiate, and if everything is agreed, we ratify the PICRA. And then now we're going to tell the buyer's agent to make sure they order the appraisal, because appraisals can hold you up. So we don't want that hold us up. Order it as soon as possible, especially when PICRA is ratified. At that point, we're going to update the MLS saying the home inspection contingency is gone. We're going to ask the sellers if they need help on picker items. And then definitely they've got our preferred contractors list. If they say they need help on electrician, it is our job to help them find the electrician. We are the person that should know just about everyone out there. So if you don't know, we have a preferred contractors list on our website, where you can go ahead and check that out, or you can go ahead and ask me or James or the broker, um, who should I use? And a lot of our agents will have other people as well. So don't be afraid to ask for contractors. At this point, we want to obtain the termite moisture report. If there's any damages with that, obviously we want to get a quote on it, especially if the quote that the buyers got are outrageous. We want to make sure that we are going to get the job done right, but for the right price too. And there's a lot of termite companies out there that try and rob people. So I've got multiple people that you can use, but it's always good to get multiple quotes. Um, at this point, we want to obtain the condo and or POA docs if those are applicable. It is our job to order those on the listing side. And usually with that, I try and order those ahead of time because it's always good to just have, and then you could just give, because this is one of those things where, again, it could hold us up and it takes a while to get to if it's a bad association. So I love getting those ahead of time and then being able to send it to them and then get rid of that contingency, because we all know at this point they have 3 days to review it. And if they don't like any of these rules, they could back out. So I like doing this ahead of time. Some people wait till after the home inspection. Me personally, I order it up front because it can take up to 10 days to get back to you. So you're trying to move quick. I like getting it done fast. At this point, once they receive the docs, which you would get it as well for the condo or POA, you're going to send the Conres 2 or the POA 2 saying the buyer has acknowledged that they've received it. They have 3 days from this point. Once those 3 days go up, then we're going to remove that contingency, and then we're going to update the listing to pending. From this point, we want to coordinate with the sellers to have the utilities shut off on the closing day. So they would call all their companies like Cox, Verizon, Dominion, and a lot of the times they don't even have to call. They could just do it online, which is very nice. Here, you want to ask the buyer's agent what day and time they're doing a walkthrough. If they say they're doing it on closing day, they are not a proactive agent. Ideally, we want all repairs fixed 3 to 5 days before closing. And then we want the walkthrough to be done at least 3 to 2 days before closing, because if there's any problems or any issues, I want to be able to fix that before closing. Because if it's done on closing day and we have a problem, they're going to push closing back, and we don't want that. So what we can do is finish everything ahead of time, empty the house ahead of time, and then make sure they do the walkthrough and are proactive, so we don't have to delay closing if there is an issue. Tell the buyer's agent they can take the key after the walkthrough if everything is good. If something is bad, obviously we still need it so a contractor can fix something. And again, you want to double check with your sellers to make sure they actually fixed everything from the home inspection report. So making sure you're getting receipts. And then if you're getting any of those contractors paid from the closing, then you want to send those invoices to our attorney, who will then put it on the CD, the closing disclosure. That way, that contractor can get paid from closing, and they would get paid the day it records. So usually the day after closing, just like you, the agent, and the seller, they would all get paid that day as well. So you're going to coordinate closing with the seller, listing, and closing attorney. So at this point, you want to ideally find out a time for your seller to close. You don't have to be there, but it's always nice to. I love being in the photo for it, and then again, just advertising myself. But at this point, they can actually close earlier than the actual closing date. Sellers can close first, buyers can close later. So if you want them to close on closing day, day before it, you just schedule that with the closing attorney, and usually you don't schedule that for at least a week in advance. If you can't do 2 3 weeks in advance, it's impossible because they have so much going on their side. So really, a week in advance is good enough timing. You just ask the seller, hey, what day and time works best for you, and I'll try and get that scheduled. You'll let the buyer's agent know what day and time we're closing. After closing, you're going to verify that the buyer's agent that they've closed and that they're still on time. You're going to update the MLS to say it has been sold. And then after that, you're going to go to Zillow and ask for a review from the buyer. And then you want to input in Zillow that you have a new property sold through your Zillow profile. And I don't like using Zillow, but people love looking at it. And if you can boost your agent profile, that's all you need to do. So if you go on my agent profile, you can see all the houses I've sold, when I've sold it, and then how much. And then that way you can use that as a credential for other prospects of other potential sellers saying, hey, look, I've physically done this. Check it out. So it's always nice doing that. Creating another post saying it's sold. You can send an email to the seller thanking them. You can give them a closing gift, whatever you prefer. Send a buyer's agent a thank you, their transaction coordinator saying, hey, it was great working with you guys. Can't wait to do it again. Because when you create good relationships in this business, it makes your life easier down the road. So that's always a good plan to do. Then you're going to go ahead and collect your commission check at the buyer's closing attorney. So not your listing firm, the buyer's closing firm. You go to their office and get the check from that point. You can ask for them to wire it. A lot of times they don't, but we do have wiring instructions if they do. Makes your life easier too. But sometimes they will charge a wiring fee, and generally that's around $30. So it's up to you if you want to. If not, go ahead, pick up the closing check, bring it over to Austin James, and at that point, we'll go ahead, process the check, and then get you paid. But you got to make sure all your brokerment documents are in first. So then once all documents are in, we've got the check, everything looks good, then we can pay you. And then you would generate stuff to, well, you wouldn't even do this, but you would do the docs showing how much money you're expecting. And if you're on a team, then from that as well, you would say how much each team member is getting. And then from there, we could do the splits for you guys. Whew, that was a lot. Now this over here, this is your listing a home checklist. This is a little bit more detail on the actual listing appointment. So what I love to do is to do a CMA first of the house on Matrix and in RPR. Only realtors have access to RPR. But it's nice to do both and then get a good guesstimate of what the house is worth. This is before you actually see the house. Next, you want to ask the seller how much they owe on their home. So this has brought me a lot of problems in the past, especially when people bought their houses between 07 and 2010. A lot of people were totally underwater on what their house is worth. And actually now, January 13th, 2021, people are way overpaying for what their houses are worth, kind of mirroring what happened in 07 to 2010. Same exact thing. Everyone way overpaid for their house. Now, what happened with those people is, let's say they bought a house for $200,000. Easy math, okay? Generally, people will owe about 10% to sell the house. And this is just a base standard. Obviously, it can change. But 200,000, and we'll times that by 0.9, so we get 90% of the value, and they'll walk away with 180,000. All right. Let's say they bought it for 200,000, they overpaid for it, and the house is only worth 180,000. Okay. First, we have a problem. They owe 200 and the house is only worth 180. We can't sell for 200 because it's only worth 180. And this is in the future when the houses start dropping again, but here at 180, if they sold it at 180 and we go by that 10% value, They're only going to walk away with 162. Well, they owe 200,000. They would have to bring to the table $38,000 to sell the house. Obviously, it will not work. And if they have a true cause on to sell their house now, um, like short selling it, they could, because that is an ideal scenario of a short sale. You're going to short the bank $38,000. Um, and then your credit gets out of whack, and you really don't want to do that. That's only if you have a just cause. If you don't have a just cause and you just want to sell it just because, it's not going to work unless you have 38K in the scenario to bring to the table. That's why right now in today's market, it is dangerous for what these buyers are doing with overpaying for these homes. They're setting themselves up for failure later in the future, 5 to 10 years from now, when they want to sell. The house they bought at 250 is only worth 220 now. And let's just say 10 years from now they owe 220 and the house is only worth 220. If we're going to go by the same scenario of times 0.9, 220, they would lose $22,000. So it's not fun, and you definitely have to get this. This is so important. It's not even funny. Right now, it's not bad because it's a huge seller's market. A lot of sellers are getting overpriced, and a lot of them are finally walking away from that bad thing that happened 10 years ago to the market. But now it's kind of repeating itself, and that's kind of what happens every decade. Is you'll see it starts repeating. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just have to get what they owe, and everyone can find it. They just might be too lazy. Just make sure you find it before you go. Just don't waste your time. Anyways, so you asked if they have a most recent physical copy. When I'm there, or before I'm actually there, I tell them about it. I'm like, hey, get me that statement. And then a lot of times when I'm there, I'm like, do you have this statement? Um, and then you also want to ask them, is there any specific amount that they want from the sale? So, for instance, some sellers will say, I need $5,000 to move. Every case is different, obviously. But let's just say you can find out how realistic they are on this, because if they say, I need 20,000 no matter what, but when you do the math and they're going to lose $2,000, then it's not going to work out. Because if they're going to lose $22,000, but they need to make 20 grand out of it, it's not going to work selling their house. And how they did the math, they probably forgot about closing costs. So you always want to include the closing costs, and I'll show you on here later where that closing cost comes from. So just do the math ahead of time, get a ballpark what the house is worth, do estimates in different scenarios of closing costs of what they would net, and then what they owe, and then what they want to take away from it, because that will change for everyone. So when you're there, you want to get an estimate of how old the roof is, HVAC, electric if they've done any. Same with the plumbing, how old the appliances are, like fridge, stove, range, microwave, dishwasher, washer, dryer, last time they painted, other miscellaneous stuff, what type of heating, what type of cooling, if there's any easements or encroachments. Do they have a survey? Are they in flood zone? Do they require flood insurance? What's their premium for the year? And a lot of this stuff you can find online, but it's always good to ask them as well. Like, I wouldn't know the last time they updated their washer and dryer. So it's always good to have that stuff. Next, I'm going to ask them what their premium is for the year for flood insurance. Are they in an HOA or condo? What are the fees? I may be able to find a fee online, but I want to see what they're paying, because sometimes what they're paying actually goes up. And I've had it before where they say, yeah, it goes up $10 every year, or it goes up $5 every year. So you have to get that number, and ask them if they're the fees for the condo or HOA plan on going up anytime soon. What do the fees include? Any specific association rules that you should know? Like, for instance, one association I sold, I knew that Christmas lights could only be white on the outside, and then there could be no inflatables in the front yard. So every association has different standards. So if there's any crazy rules, you always want to ask about those. Is there a fireplace? Is it gas, wood burning, propane, just a decorative? Is there water and sewer on city? Is the foundation a slab or crawl? Are they currently on a treatment plan? Again, like earlier I talked about, it's important to know. When was last time their house was treated for termites? What appliances are staying with the house? Which ones they're taking with them? Um, let's see, or were there any additions to the house? Was it permitted? What materials the flooring? What materials the siding? What materials the roof? A lot of this, again, you can find online. but it's just good to ask them. And when you're walking the property, you can write down these notes as well. Is there a fence? Is it privacy? Is it partial? Does it cover the full yard, just part of the yard? Is there a sprinkler system? And basically, once you find out all this stuff when you're walking through the house, at the same time, I'm taking notes of problems I see of the home, like if there's chipping paint, if there's moisture damage, if there's a crack in the window. That's stuff that impacts the value of the home. So what I want to do is I'm going to now figure out what adds value and what devalues from the physical analysis of the house. Now, this can take some time. And usually, what I like doing is telling them what adds value. I'm like, look, if you repair all this carpet, that is going to add value to the home. But if all this carpet is going to be with dog and cat pee stains, it is not going to add value to the home. It is going to devalue it a lot. So in this case, it's worth it to buy new carpet rather than not. So once you figure this out, even though you've got an estimated what the house is worth from when you first saw the house, well, now you can add in these values or devalues. Like if they upgraded their whole kitchen, obviously that upgrades the value of where you originally looked at it. Because if you said this house is worth between 200 and 220, depending on the shape, well, if it's in great shape, yeah, I would say now it's going to lean on that 220 side. But if it's in bad shape, then it's going to lean to that 190 to 200 side. So you always want to walk the physical property. Um, and then here, this is where you give your suggested list price. And again, very important, getting the physical payoff statement from the seller because sometimes they're wrong on what they owe. So if we're saying that they owe 200,000, but I just recommended saying it's going to sell for 220, and if we go by the normal 10% rule, they're going to lose $2,000 selling it. So in this case, now we know what we have to negotiate for selling the house, where we would have to take less in closing costs for the buyer. So very important stuff to know ahead of time. So when it comes to that 10% closing costs, generally it's that 6% realtor commission. Here at Austin James, we like our listing agents to take 6% on the realtor costs. But again, this is all negotiable and our agents can do whatever they want. Then 3% of that is going to be usually for buyers closing cost assistance. Now, anything below 220, 225 is going to require more in closing cost assistance, generally 3.5%, 4%. And then anything above like 300 is going to take less than 3%, sometimes 2.75. And then when you get in the 500,000 range, obviously it's like 2%, maybe 1.75. So I just usually ballpark because our average sales price is 250. So this 10% rule will come in a lot with that. And then we've got 1% miscellaneous fees for paying off the lender, taxes, attorney, all that jazz. So that's where the 10% comes from. 6% realtor cost, 3% buyer's closing cost assistance, which is negotiable, and then 1% miscellaneous cost. So ultimately, if you're not paying the buyer's closing cost assistance, then really you're only doing 7%. So with our person here that owes 180 on the house, and we can sell for 220 at 220, I'm now going to take 93% because 7% closing costs. They'll walk away with 204 600, and in that case, they're going to make money. So that is important stuff to know ahead of time. So that is where you write this stuff down. And you always want to figure out ways of increasing the home. So painting the home always helps. If they update the kitchen, especially the counters and appliances, sprucing up the landscape, updating the bathrooms, replacing the carpet, waxing the floor, all that stuff helps the house, especially when you get professional photos. Doing those things, especially just painting and honestly cleaning and decluttering, those will also help as well, and always help you get more of that top dollar. Right now, everyone's getting top dollar, but in the future, it won't be like that. So you have to go back to the basics of fresh paint, new floors, especially if it's carpet, or just getting it waxed or cleaned, decluttering, especially decluttering, and then sprucing up the yard, whether you're getting new mulch, pulling out weeds, putting in new plants, painting the outside, painting the columns, whatever it may be, getting new lights, all that adds value. It all helps. And it's pretty cheap to do that stuff as well. It just takes time and effort. But if you want to sell for top dollar, well worth it. What I like doing too is creating a specialized features list. which is all the way at the bottom here, where it'll show what, like, if they did a lot of stuff. That is where I'll show everything they did, how much it cost. That way they know in the future. So this guy, they put in 250K into the house since they bought it. So it's great to show, yes, this is why I'm selling this for this top dollar, because we added all of this stuff. So that stuff is very nice to do. Um, so then let's go. So once you've got all of that, that is basically with your documents. That's where you grab the lockbox from Rain. If you want to include CBS, put in the lockbox, order the sign from Riggs, um, making sure they're doing Miss Utility. Again, all this stuff we talked about. For the photos, I like doing the photos at least like 5 days before it's going to go live, because it's going to take at least a day or two for the photos to come back to me. So I want to make sure I've got the listing inputted as incomplete in Rain. I've got 7 days before I actually have to submit it. If not, it disappears. So don't do it more than 7 days. And then I get the photos, can upload the photos later. So I usually like doing it at least a week before, like a week to 5 days, but you can get it sooner. Like I just got photos done 2 months in advance, just because everything was set and ready, but my people want to wait 2 months. So it's, whenever you guys can get it done, just don't do it 2 days before, always at least 2 days in advance. Never less. Um, then you want to recheck all your information in the MLS, save it as incomplete. On listing day, you're going to submit the listing. And so really it just says submit listing. And I usually do that around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. That way it's first thing on the market. Everyone sees it. It pops up in everyone's mail. And it shows up as day zero on it, which is day one. Um, but if you put it at like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., you really just wasted half the day for half the market to see. So early morning is preferred. And then that way everyone can see it. Now, Zillow here. Rain has made it to where Zillow is delayed on getting our listing. How long it is going to be delayed, who knows? It could be 3 days, could be a week, could be 2 days. And who knows how long that's going to stay. But if your sellers are saying, hey, I don't see it on Zillow, it'll automatically populate in there when it's ready. And same with every website, whether we're talking about Zillow, Trulia, Homes.com, anywhere like that, you don't have to do anything. It'll automatically go from Rain to about 300 websites. So don't ever worry about that. That does it for you. You schedule the open house when it's time. I love doing it on Saturday and Sundays, except when football is going on. So then Saturdays for sure. If you guys get multiple offers is an interesting thing to handle, especially in today's market where we get like 20 offers on a house. It's very dumb. But let's just say you're listing a house. You've been on the market for 2 weeks. You get 3 offers. Fantastic. What I love doing is calling for highest and best. Um, that way, everyone gets a good, fair chance at the house. Technically, you're not allowed to say, this person did 300, this person did 305, what can you do? You can't do that. You actually have to ask permission from every single agent saying, can I share your offer with others? And then you'll get the same treatment. No one's going to agree to that because they don't want the other person to outbid them. So what you could do is an escalation clause, and you'll see that sometimes, to where they automatically want to be above someone else if this offer comes in up to this price. Um, but I just love calling for highest and best. That way they put their best foot forward. And then usually I give it 2 days, no later than 5 p.m. So then other showings can happen. And that way best offer comes in. It's a legitimate way of doing it. It's very fair. But again, it is against the rules to go to each individual agent saying, hey, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. They will ask you, if you've got other offers. Yes, you can say that. You can say, yes, I've got 2 other offers in hand. Um, just please have your offer in by this date, by 5 p.m. We'd be happy to review it with you. So at that point, you would just make a net sheet showing how much the seller is going to walk away. And sometimes if it comes down to the exact same price, exact same loan type, and exact same date, which happens, Doesn't happen too often, but if it's the exact same offer, generally in this case, I'm going to look for who is the better agent to work with, and then I'll recommend to my people exactly why it's better for that. Um, so I hope all of this info is helpful for you guys. The only thing I didn't show you is actually how to upload this stuff into Rain, because that is a process. They've made it easy now to where you can do all the stuff through Transaction Desk, do the data input sheet, fill out the entire data input sheet because you're doing that during the listing docs. And you'll get a lot of the info for that data input sheet from this. Um, and then what you do on there is you submit that to Rain. So you actually click on this box icon at the top right, and then that'll take all your info into Rain as an incomplete listing. So at that point, it just automatically goes into Rain for you, and then you can review the info from there and click save as incomplete. And then once you get the photos, you upload the photos, and then once it's listing day, you submit listing, and then that's how it goes live on the market, and then that's how it goes to the million websites. So lots and lots of info. I really hope this helps all of you guys. If you guys need any help in the future, I am always there for you. And I truly hope everyone has a great day. Thanks, guys.